In this video, we're going to walk you through how to use the New York City Mansion Tax Calculator available at Hauseit.com. This is the interface of the calculator itself. On the left, you have the ability to input the sale price as well as the property type. These two inputs are going to impact both the rate of the mansion tax as well as the dollar amount that you would pay at closing. And it's worth remembering that the mansion tax is a buyer closing cost here in the city. Although technically the mansion tax is a transfer tax and sellers pay transfer taxes, the mansion tax is really a standalone tax. It's not referred to along with your seller New York City and New York State transfer taxes. So looking at the calculator, we have an input here of 1 million, and that's because the mansion tax only comes into effect if you're buying a property that's $1 million or more. The original mansion tax was actually implemented in 1989, and at the time it was a fixed 1% transfer tax. Now what's happened is in 2019 there were some changes to the New York tax law which did change the mansion tax from what was previously a fixed 1% regardless of sale price to a more progressive system, which you can see here, consisting of 8 individual tax brackets. So the tax rate itself has not changed for sale prices from 1 million to less than 2 million, but as you go above 2 million, at or above 2 million, the mansion tax rate can go up significantly, and it tops out at 3.9% for purchases of $25 million or more. So going back into the calculator here, we can see that if we adjust the sale price to something that's higher than 1 to 2 million, we're going to get a higher mansion tax rate of 1.25%. So the calculator here should be generating an output for the mansion tax, which is consistent with these tax brackets. We can test it again using 20 million as the purchase price. So let's add another 0, and that's going to give us a mansion tax rate of 3.75%. That appears to be consistent with what you have here. So if you look at the analysis, the changes in the mansion tax rate in 2019 made it much more progressive. The higher the purchase price, the higher the tax you'll have to pay as a buyer. Now, fortunately, the mansion tax is a one-time tax. It's a closing cost as opposed to a recurring tax. So in that sense, it is not the worst thing that could have happened to overall taxation if you were thinking about buying a property that was subject to the mansion tax. When this legislation was being discussed, there was conversation about there potentially being a pied-à-terre tax, a recurring tax based on, presumably annual ownership. So that would have been much more costly and sort of, dissuasive to buyers looking to purchase in the city compared to a one-time tax, which is what happened with the mansion tax changes. A couple of other notes here in terms of property type. We can change the property type to co-op, 1 to 3 family house, and you'll see that it doesn't really have any impact on the mansion tax itself. The mansion tax, however, does not apply for the property types which are, say, a residential property with 4 or more units. So if it's a townhouse with 4 apartments, you would not have to pay the mansion tax. Similarly with commercial real estate, again, there is no mansion tax. However, for 4 or more family houses in commercial real estate, there are higher seller transfer taxes on those depending on the price point. So that is something for you to keep in mind as well. So going back to the calculator, if we pick a more normal sale price here in the city, let's say it's 1.5 million, we have our mansion tax of 1%. And it also shows here the transfer taxes. Now, just to reiterate, these taxes are paid by the seller. So the seller is going to pay around $27,000 here for this deal, 1.825%, and the buyer is paying 1%. We like to say that the total taxes consist of both the mansion tax and the transfer tax because they're all payable at closing. The only thing that is meaningful is that the seller pays some of those and the buyer pays the mansion tax component as well. In terms of general analysis here, we would say that the mansion tax is a pretty large closing cost. If you're thinking about what are your total buyer closing costs, there is a separate calculator for that on the Hauseit site. right here on the drop down. So if we open that really quick, we're going to take a look and try to figure out how big the mansion tax is as a percentage of the other closing costs you would have as a buyer. So extending our example of a $1.5 million condo, let us assume that we are financing 80%. And if you look here, as far as total closing costs as a buyer, you're at 3.7%. Of course, 1% of that is the mansion tax, and the remainder of the closing costs are largely driven by two other items: the mortgage recording tax, which is pretty large, as well as title insurance. Now, if you're not financing, your closing costs should go down because there is no mortgage recording tax. So if we toggle this, you go down from 3.7% to 1.8% on average. So that's pretty much the summary in regard to the mansion tax calculator. You can reduce the mansion tax or partially or fully offset it by requesting a Hauseit buyer closing credit. Feel free to check out the Hauseit website to learn more about that, right here on the drop-down, buyer closing credit. If you have any other questions about closing costs, about the calculators, leave us a comment below the video. And if you have any other ideas about tutorials, other calculators we can create, let us know. Good luck out there.